Hey, welcome to my channel, Future Dragon Rocket. This is going to be my book review of Star Wars Catalyst, a Rogue One novel written by James Luceno. I'm not sure if I pronounced his last name right. He is a very well-known Star Wars author. He's written both Legends and canon Star Wars books. I'm sure his other works that are not Star Wars books as well. But just to set a quick time date on this book, because there's a lot going on in the Star Wars universe. It takes a big span of time in the Star Wars universe, because it starts in about 22 BBY, during like Attack of the Clones episode 2, kind of like before the Battle of Geonosis. And it pretty much goes up until Rogue One, it's a few years probably before Rogue One, because Jyn Erso, at the end of the book, is still maybe a toddler, but maybe still of elementary school age. She's definitely not the teenager or young adult that she is in Rogue One. So, probably a 20-year time span of the characters in this book. So let's get into it. Let's get into the characters. Really all focuses around three people. This is going to focus around Galen Erso and his wife Lyra. At the beginning of the book, obviously, it's 22 BBY, around the middle of the prequels, Attack of the Clones. Jyn Erso is not born yet. I do believe that within probably the first, let's say, 75 pages, that we know that Galen Erso's wife Lyra is pregnant, or is about to give birth. And then the other character in here, you love to hate him, Orson Krennic. Orson Krennic, of course, has been in Rogue One. He was in the second season of Andor most recently. Lots of other characters in this book. I mean, there's those are the three main characters that are conversing in every chapter. But there is mentions of Count Dooku. There is mention of Palpatine and Vader visiting the Death Star. The smallest but coolest character Easter egg, is that there is mention of Cham Syndulla. It's like his liberation on planet Ryloth. Obviously, Saw Gerrera's in it. Saw Gerrera is a big player in the Rebellion. He's in the Rogue One movie, obviously, and Saw Gerrera is in the book. He's, I believe, mentioned right in the middle of the book, and then right at the end of the book. He's not in too much of it. But this book is split into kind of three parts, and he's mentioned in part 2 and part 3. He's not mentioned in the first part of the book. And I think this is a great book, no matter what time is your favorite time of Star Wars, what era is your favorite era of Star Wars, whether you like the originals, whether you like the prequels, whether you like Clone Wars or Rebels, whether or not you like anything, really. It takes, like, the time span that this book takes up is really good. But especially if you're a fan of Rogue One, if you're a fan of Andor, this is a good book for you. Obviously, it's called Rogue One. It's called Catalyst, a Rogue One novel. So you're definitely gonna like it if you like Rogue One, because it's basically Rogue One characters. But I highly recommend this. It's probably my favorite canon Star Wars book. Definitely at least top 3 favorite canon books. I mean, I grew up reading lots of Legends. I prefer the Legends books over the canon books, or New Republic or Old Republic stuff. But I'd say the only newer stuff that I like similar to this is probably the canon Thrawn trilogy. But let's go through and kind of react to like the story and the plot as well. So at the beginning of the book, during the Clone Wars, the Ursos are arrested and they're separated. They're imprisoned, but separately in separate places. The whole and there's all kinds of like weapons research, kyber crystal research going on that Orson Krennic wants to get Galen Erso out of prison to do. Galen Erso obviously doesn't know that he wants to use him to build the Death Star with, and neither does his wife. But Orson Krennic essentially gets them out of prison back to Coruscant. But not before Jyn Erso was born, which it's a good kind of tie into the rebellion. Jyn Erso is actually born in captivity while her mother is in prison. She's born in captivity in prison. But Galen, Lyra, Jyn, they manage to get freed and they get to go to Coruscant. And at some point during like the pitch of like maybe like Orson Krennic pitching like the job of like hypercrystal energy research job position, like an official like Imperial Empire job position to Galen Erso, they are presented with kyber crystals. And I'm not sure if it's Galen Erso or Lyra. One of them realizes it. I think it's Lyra actually, Galen Erso's wife, Lyra. I believe it's her in the book. She quickly realizes that they're from dead Jedis. These kyber crystals are from dead Jedi's lightsabers, which is probably a really dark moment. I mean, if you saw that on screen, if you heard that conversation, saw that on screen, that would probably be a pretty dark moment. Like, here's a gift. Here's these beautiful, powerful kyber crystals, and dun dun dun. Come to find out, like, these are from dead Jedi. And then Galen Erso is then shown just like the biggest kyber crystal like anyone has ever seen. Obviously, like they're going to do research on it, but this is what's going to be used in the Death Star, the biggest kyber crystal ever. And Galen Erso is still very ignorant of Galen Erso. I mean, what did I just say? Galen Erso is still he's very ignorant of Orson Krennic and the Empire, but his wife Lyra is the skeptic and is always trying to talk him out of things because Lyra believes that Palpatine is lying about the Jedi attack in his office during Revenge of the Sith. And she does her own little side story investigation, like going to travel, going to other planets to like check things out and everything. And this cool side story like leads her into like investigating ion cannons that are like used to like planet. They're basically like ion cannons are used to like defend planets. Ion cannons are just huge weapons that are not commonly used, and I'm sure not every planet has them. And it seems that the people that she's investigating these ion cannons with are hiding the fact that they seem to know that like the Death Star is being built, and that they invested in these ion cannons because they know that the Death Star is being built. Even though her husband Galen Erso is still ignorant to the fact that he's a pawn of the Empire, he's a pawn of Orson Krennic. 2/3 of the way through the book, kind of like at the end of part 2, before part 3 of the book starts, Orson Krennic does the first test shot of the Death Star into a black hole. It's a really cool little chapter. They didn't know exactly where to test it. I assume they didn't know, if it was going to blow up. They didn't want to be too close to, a planet. They weren't sure how far, I guess, the shot was going to go from the Death Star. So the first test shot of the Death Star, they found a black hole to like shoot the Death Star towards to test it out. And I believe it wasn't actually the Death Star. Like they tested it out from like a Star Destroyer. I'll have to go back and reread the book when I have time, but I think like they didn't test it out from the actual Death Star like construction site. They tested out the ray from the kyber crystal from a Star Destroyer, which is crazy because it's like miles and miles long. I'm not sure how that works, but kind of like the ending of the book, part 3 of 3 in this book. Galen Erso, his wife Lyra Erso, they both have concerns about Orson Krennic and the Empire. They're getting blocked. They cannot contact friends and coworkers on Coruscant or any other planets. They're worried that the Empire has blown up like bases and cities on all these other planets already. And the book ends with Saw Gerrera kind of extracting and saving the family, Galen Erso, Lyra, Jin from Coruscant, and that leads them into hiding for the opening of the Rogue One movie a few years later. But this was, even though it wasn't action packed. The book was pretty fast paced. It was kind of suspenseful with the whole side story with Galen Erso's wife Lyra, kind of doing like her own investigation into the Empire. But 10 out of 10 book in my experience. Check it out. I think this is probably a book that you can get at any bookstore. Highly recommend going to like your local bookstore, not large corporations. Definitely do not use Amazon. They're trying to put bookstores out of business. But let me know what you think. Have you read this book? Is it on your to be read list, your TBR list? Again, highly recommend it. Star Wars Catalyst, a Rogue One novel by James Luceno.